Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rabbi Elio Yunik of Chabad of Burlington, and I'm honored to welcome you all to this space. Tonight, we will get to hear the personal first-hand account of Nikita Somrov and the emotions he experienced on that dark day 25 weeks ago. I would like to share with you a fascinating Hasidic thought which I find to be very relevant to tonight. We all know that one of the most celebrated commandments is the mitzvah of Ahavat Yisrael, love your fellow as yourself. The Kabbalistic masters offer a deep and rich reading of this injunction, explaining that the relationship between one Jew and his or her fellow kinsman is akin to the relationship that an individual has with himself, not just like family members, siblings, spouses, or even parents and children. Rather, we really are one soul. Loving our fellow is in essence loving ourselves. We may be in different bodies, but that is only our external identity. Our true identity is our souls. Even though our bodies cross seas and cross mountains, each of us in a different place, nonetheless, we are a crucial and indispensable part of this whole. We're just one of us. To be missing the body in its entirety would be missing a basic part of his identity. This, of course, is a far more profound connection than our material kinship. It is a soul bond. This is also the meaning of the saying, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh, all of Israel are responsible for one another. The word Arevim can be interpreted in more than one way. It usually means Arev, which means responsible, but it can also mean Iruv, enjoined. All Jews are enjoined in with one another. We are one entity, and therefore we are responsible for one another. Having said this, I think it is fair to say that tonight we will not merely be bearing witness to another person's distress and grief. Instead, we are here today to connect to what a part of ourself experienced just a few months ago. While we were dancing on Simchas Torah, mostly oblivious to the horrors occurring in the Holy Land, parts of ourselves were suffering and are still in great anguish today. Tonight we stand as one symbolic whole at this event that was organized by Temple Sinai, Ohavei Tzedek, and Chabad. Not only in times like this, but especially in times like this, it is important for us to unite as one whole. And as one whole, we pray to our Heavenly Father that our brethren, flesh of our own flesh, still held captive in the hands of our enemies, be released immediately. May He restore peace to our beloved land and to the entire world. I'd like to call upon Rabbi Raskin to recite Psalm 122.
I'll say it first in Hebrew and then we'll translate. Shir HaMa'alos LeDavid Samachti B'Omer Libeis Adonai Nelech Omdei So Ragleinu B'Shareich Yerushalayim Yerushalayim Abnuya Ki Yishechu Bo Lo Yachdav Shesham Alu Shvatim Shiftei Yidus LeYisrael LeHodos L'Shem Adonai Ki Shama Yashvu Chises LeMishpat Kises Veis David Shalu Shleim Yerushalayim Shlo Yavoich Yehi Shalom B'Chelech Shalva B'Amenesoich L'man achai v're'oi adaber nashalim bach, l'man beis adinoi Eloheinu avakshel tevilach. A song of ascent by David. I rejoice when they say to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet were standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem that is built like a city in which all Israel is united together. For the tribes, when the tribes went up, the tribes of God, as enjoined upon an Israel to offer praise to the name of the Lord. For there stood the seats of justice, the throne of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you have peace. May there be peace within your walls, serenity within your mansions. For the sake of my brethren and friends, I ask that there be peace within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord of our God, I seek your well-being.
Thank you. I'd like to call upon Rabbi David Edelson to say a few words.
good to see you all here. Monday is 6 months since October 7th. 6 months that people have been in this space, that we as a community have been in this space, but more importantly, that the hostages have been held hostage. And I wanted to start with that. 6 months. When I was in Israel recently for several weeks, and when you get off the plane in Israel, you're seeing nothing but pictures of all the hostages. Everywhere you go, there are either informal displays about the hostages or more formal ones. I was at protests about the hostages in Eilat, in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, and at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, where there's a tent where people share their stories and groups regularly gather around them so that it remains in the front of people's mind. Whereas here it feels like it easily gets lost in all the barrage of news and social media and the stuff we're dealing with here. It's easy to forget the people's stories. So that's why I'm so glad that at this 6-month mark, we're going to hear a story tonight. The one image I just wanted to share is, in Israel, like get the hostages out or on every bus. It's everywhere you go. But the one image that I wanted to bring back that struck me is on Dizengoff Street in Tel Aviv. There are lots of benches, because people like to sit while they're walking. And on each one of those benches, for most of Dizengoff Street, certainly the busy part of it, there was a human-sized, almost said a life-sized teddy bear, but I don't know what a life-sized teddy bear size is. So I would say a human-sized teddy bear, tied up, blindfolded, with blood or dirt or things over them. So it was this visceral reminder of what people are going through. And I hope that tonight, as hard as it is to hear, it reminds us of what is still happening and what we really need to set our minds and our hearts to. So with that in mind, I want to invite up Rabbi Aaron Filmus of Ohavit Tzedek to lead us. Do you need me to hold this? Yeah.
There, you could do the
Okay.
singing, and I'll do.
Or I can hold the microphone. We're good
It's
either
okay.
way. It's on the back of the order of service.
How good it is to sit here with our brothers and sisters as one. Hine ma tovu malayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu malayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la. Hine ma tov malayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Well, I'd now like to call up Drazy, the director of Chabad Burlington, to introduce our speaker.
Good evening, everybody. As we are all gathered here tonight, I would like to first take a moment for the women of October 7th. Women who were kidnapped and treated in the most horrific ways that hurt our minds and hearts to even begin to imagine. Let's take a moment for the women who are bravely telling their stories to a world whose ears are deaf. And let's be the voices for all the women who are not sharing their stories because they have been slaughtered, because they are currently being held hostage, or because they are in deep trauma. Let us also take a moment for all the brave men and for all the precious children who lived and died through the massacres, and for all those who are actively risking their life to protect the land of Israel and the Jewish nation. Nikita Somrov is a 29-year-old who grew up in Kibbutz Nahal Oz with his parents and younger brothers since they immigrated there from Russia in 2001. Today, he lives there with his wife, Sarah, and his 5-year-old son, Aviv. He's a software engineer working at Be'eri Print. On October 7th, about 300 terrorists and burglars attacked their kibbutz, infiltrated the community to attack civilian residents. They slaughtered or kidnapped 19 residents. We're here tonight to listen to Nikita's story. So thank you so much for being here. It is an honor for us here, and I'll pass on the mic.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. And as said, my name is Nikita Somrov, and today I'll be telling you my story of the October 7th. We live in Kibbutz Nahal Oz, and I just want to start with some proportions on where Nahal Oz is. So here you can see Gaza Strip, and the dotted line is the border, and Nahal Oz is right over here, less than 400 yards from the border. The closest house to the border in Nahal Oz and the closest house in Gaza are less than a mile away from each other. I want to start this story a day before, on the October 6th. It was Friday evening, and we are, as a kibbutz, and whoever is not familiar with the word kibbutz, it's like a small village with a population of 350 people. It's a very intimate community. Everyone knows everyone. You say hello to everyone you see on the street. We celebrate all of the holidays together, and it's very fun living there. And at Friday night, we were rehearsing for a play in a big party we were supposed to have on the October 7th at night. We were celebrating 70 years of existence for Nahal Oz. We were supposed to have over 1,000 participants in our celebrations to celebrate the big holiday we had in our kibbutz. And we had like this big stage, always set up, always ready. And my kid was dancing in a dance with all his friends from his kindergarten. And I was acting in a play, and we've been all there together. It was all very fun. And then we just went to bed normally. Everything started on the morning of the October 7th at 6:30 exactly, when we heard the red alarm sound. This alarm tells us that we have less than 15 seconds to get into shelter. So just like in autopilot, me and my wife opened our eyes and ran to the safe room. That's where our kid, Aviv, sleeps. As soon as we got to the safe room, rockets already started falling around our house and very close to our neighborhood. And I didn't have enough time to shut the metal blind on the window of the safe room, so it was not really safe to be in the safe room. So I took my kid and my wife, and we sat on the floor for the first 10 minutes of the most massive rocket attack I remember on our kibbutz. As sad as it sounds, we are used to rockets being shot at us every once in a while, but I really don't remember in the 23 years living there such a massive amount of rockets in such a short time. After 10 minutes, there was a break, about 30 seconds of silence, and I had the option to go to the metal blind and shut it. At that point, we felt entirely safe because we are in our safe rooms, the metal blind on the window is shut, the door is locked, and what's the worst that can happen? So the rockets continued for another about 5 minutes, and then it just stopped. And I was going to get out of the safe room and start our Saturday, just start a normal Saturday, our free day of the week. And I remember, as soon as I opened the door of the safe room and took one step out, I heard gunshots. As you can see, we are very close to Gaza, and hearing gunshots, it's not something unusual for us. Gunshots and explosions. But this time, it was different. This time, the sounds of shootings and explosions came from within the kibbutz. It was not the faraway sounds that I'm used to hear. And the first thing I did is I picked up my phone, I called my dad, it was 6:47. I called my dad and I told him, Dad, there are shootings inside the kibbutz, something else is going on. It's not only rockets. Go lock your doors and be in the safe room. And the next thing I did is I ran to my front door, I locked it. I ran to the back door and I locked it as well. Then I have two big glass doors of the balcony. I locked them as well, even though it would not help that much, but at that point we felt that the right thing to do. On my way back to the safe room, I ran through the kitchen, I grabbed a donut, a yogurt, and a cup of water so my kid can have a normal breakfast on this abnormal and unusual day. So we went back to the safe room, I gave my kid his breakfast, and then just the sounds of the shootings kept coming closer and closer. We started to hear explosions, and it was not missiles explosions, it was ground explosions, like RPGs and grenades. And the alarms of the red alarm kept going, but you don't care about the rockets anymore because you know there's something much worse going on outside. And I remember at that point looking at my phone, and in our kibbutz, there's like a big messenger group that all of the parts of the kibbutz, all the people that live in the kibbutz are a part of and can send messages. And then the messages just started to appear one after another. I hear people screaming in Arabic outside my window. Someone is shooting at my house. Someone tries to break into my house. And these messages just started to appear one after another. And the problem was that it was not just from one neighborhood of the kibbutz. It was from people all over the kibbutz. And then we realized that something much worse than we thought at the beginning is going on outside. And me and my wife at this point looked at each other and we understood that we have to do everything we can to protect our kid. Not physically, but mentally. We started to feel the adrenaline and the fear, and it was overtaking our bodies from inside. And we realized, without saying a word to each other, that we have to do everything we can to make our kid mentally safe. And our kid started to play with some toys and started to scream a little bit. And then I told him that he needs to be quiet, and he asked me, Dad, why I need to be quiet? And I told him that there's bad people outside, and we don't want them to know what's going on. And that there's people inside our house. And I was thinking, how else can I protect my family? Because I didn't have any firearms in my house, and I didn't have anything physical to protect myself. So the next thing I did is I ran out of the safe room while ducking in my own house because I didn't know where the terrorist was. They might be just waiting outside my window. And all the windows in my house have electric blinds. So I closed all the blinds of the house, and at that point my house was completely dark. I went back to the safe room. I turned off the AC and the fan so we will make zero noise from inside the house. And I remember I was just with my underwear and my kid was with his underwear, and there was no air, and it was very hot and humid in the safe room. But I mean, you have to do everything you can to be at least as safe as you can. And I remember at that point I wanted to check if my safe room door can be accessed from outside of the door. So I just went out for a second and tried to open the door. And I've seen that it opens very easily. So if someone will break in our house, which wasn't very hard, just breaking a few plastic blinds, our last line of defense will be us holding the door handle against the people that are outside our door and trying to kill us. And me and my wife decided that we will take shifts holding the door handle up. Even though there was no one in our house at that point, it felt mentally safer to hold the door handle up. And the other one who was not holding the door handle will play with our kids. We'll play with our kid. We've been reading books, we've been doing puzzles. It was very hard to do all these normal day life things, but we have to do it in order to keep him focused on something else and not on what's going on outside. And then I received a phone call. This phone call came from my brother, my middle brother. And I picked up the phone, and my brother told me that he's in a music festival. I know some of you might have heard of the Nova Music Festival, which had 3,000 participants, and the terrorists infiltrated the party and killed over 300 people that were there just dancing. It was not the Nova Music Festival, which occurred right around here between Be'eri and Re'im. It was an adjacent music festival close to this, and it was called Psyduck. It was a much smaller festival. It had around 150 people in it. And in that case, the terrorists did not infiltrate the music festival, but they did surround it. And whoever left the party area got shot. 20 out of the 150 people that were there got murdered. So I talked to my brother, and he asked me what's going on. He tells me that he's outside hearing a lot of explosions and shootings. I tell him that there's terrorists inside the kibbutz, and that he has to do everything he can to get out of the area, because the area is not safe anymore. And he told me that his battery runs out. He doesn't know if he will be able to reach his car. And in less than an hour, we will not be able to communicate anymore. I told him to keep himself as safe as he can, and we hanged up the phone. The next thing I remember, it was around 10:30. We are already for 4 hours in a safe room. The time in that day had no feeling. We had nothing to drink, nothing to eat. We didn't go to the toilet, but we didn't really need this essential daily stuff, because you don't think about this. When you have so much fear and adrenaline inside of you, you don't think about these normal things. And I opened up my phone. We did use the phone a lot to get information, a little bit information about what's going on outside. And I go to Facebook, and the first thing I see there is a Facebook Live. In this Facebook Live, it was posted from a woman's account. This woman lives 2 houses behind me. I know her very well. And in the footage, I was able to see her family with the neighbor's family sitting on the floor of their kitchen. The dad, one of the dads, has his hand full of blood, and the cameraman holds an AK-47 gun, which was the terrorist gun. And I understood that these two families being held captive in their own house. It's just 2 rows behind me. And I mean, just everything like this that happened and that we've seen, we realize that our death is coming closer and closer. It's just a matter of time until they will reach our house. And the next thing that happens is I see a message from my mom on my phone. It was not sent directed to me, but it was sent on the big WhatsApp group of the kibbutz. And the message said, "There are 3 terrorists inside my house. I can see them through the camera I have in my living room. Currently, I'm in the safe room. Please send help." And I did everything I could to help her. I took a satellite image of the exact location of their house and tried to send it to the head of security of the kibbutz and to different people that had to do with security in the kibbutz. But on this day, everything was such one big mess, and nobody knew how many terrorists there are, where the army is, and who is outside fighting, and who is dead already. And it didn't really help much, but it was the best I could do to help her. And another 40 minutes went by, and another message from my mom comes in the same group. And she says, They are still here. Please send help. After 40 minutes that the help didn't come to their house and that the terrorists are still there, I realized they're probably not going to make it out. And my parents, in their house, there are 2 safe rooms. So in one safe room, it was both of my parents, and on the other safe room, it was my youngest brother. He's 18 years old, and he was there all by himself. And I remember texting him and telling him to stay as quiet and calm as he can. And it was so tough to experience all this, but just by being by yourself in the safe room. And I told him that I love him. I told both of my parents that I love them because there was not much else I could do. And without even stopping to break down or to cry or to grieve or to mourn on my parents, on my brother, I just had to continue in this tough day. You can't even look back for 5 seconds on what happened. You just have to continue thinking forward of how you're going to survive this. The explosions and the shooting sounds did not stop for a second, and they just kept coming closer and closer. And my brother, who was in a music festival, was already not reachable. His phone died. And at this point, I've seen some footages from the Nova Music Festival, and I assumed that his fate is the same as the people that were in the Nova. And me and my wife looked at each other, and we knew that we are definitely going to be next. And we are sort of accepted that we are going to die, but we really couldn't accept that our kid, who's just 5, he's going to just get taken away to Gaza or going to get murdered. And because we've seen a lot, we've traveled the world and we've done enough, but he's only 5, he's done nothing, and he's just too young to give his life away. And we started to think about ways that when people will come into our house and eventually open up the safe room door, how can he be saved? How can he at least be saved? So his bed in the safe room, it opens up, and inside there's a place for sheets. So we placed some toys of his inside the bed, and we told him to play there. And we told him that if someone will come in, we will close the bed on him, and he has to stay quiet no matter what he hears and no matter what happens in the room. My wife decided it would be a wise thing to text her parents, which live far away from Gaza, to let them know that if something happens to us, our kid might be in the bed. So she texted her parents, and immediately after she texted them, it was 12:30, already 6 hours inside the safe room. The cellular reception in all of the kibbutz fell down. So we were disconnected from everything. If our only source of knowledge to at least approximately know what's going on outside was our phone, now we don't have this. The only thing we know right now is what we hear outside of our window. And it was very tough, like as I said, both of my parents and my youngest brother, also my middle brother, I thought they're all dead by now. And it was very hot and we were sweating in the safe room, and our kid just went out of the bed, he lay down on the floor because it was cold, and he just fell asleep. It's a natural reaction for a kid his age that experienced so many things in such a short time to just shut down. So he fell asleep on the floor, and me and my wife were happy that he's able to do this and like to shut down and to fall asleep. And he was sleeping for about 2 hours. As I said, the explosions and the shooting sounds did not stop for even 1 minute. At this time, me and my wife were thinking of ways that we can maybe fixate the door handle so they will not be able to open it from outside, but we couldn't really come up with anything because all there was in the room was just books and toys. And then our kid woke up, and I remember hearing people scream from far away. That was the first time this day that we heard actually people and not explosions or gunshots. And I remember I really wanted to hear in what language those people are screaming, because it matters a lot. If it was Arabic, it means that the situation is still the same. The terrorists are still here and nothing has changed. But if it would be Hebrew, it means that the enforcement is coming close and that we have a chance of surviving this. And I remember cracking up the metal blind a little bit and putting my ear to the window, and I heard a clear sentence in Hebrew, "Surgeon, come help me." I told it to my wife, and this was really the half positive point of all this day. And I told her that I heard Hebrew and our soldiers are fighting for us and they're coming closer. And another half an hour of heavy shooting went by. It was my turn to guard the handle. My wife was playing with Aviv. And the next thing that happens is I hear someone tries to break the blind on the window of our living room. And he hits it with his gun once and twice. The blind breaks. He keeps hitting it. And then I hear the window breaks and the shreds of the window are falling in to our living room. And I looked at my wife. I told her, okay, we've been waiting for 9 hours for someone to come in. Now it's the time. Come help me to hold the handle. So she comes to me. Both of us are holding the door handle up. And then the man that tried to get in just suddenly stopped. It was silence for about 15 seconds. And then I hear a sentence in Hebrew outside of our safe room. It was some people standing outside, and he said, "I can't break it," in Hebrew. And immediately after this, we hear 3 knocks. Tzahal, tzahal, tzahal. It was on the metal blind of the window. And without hesitating, I open up the metal blind, and I see 5 IDF soldiers. The face of one of them I remember particularly well. He was a blonde officer. He looked like an angel to me. After 9 hours for just waiting for our soldiers to come and save us, and only terrible news were heard this day until the cellular reception went off. And I immediately opened up the front door. I let the soldiers in. About 15 soldiers came into my house. They took positions with their guns out in every window of the house because they didn't know if the threat was still outside or how many terrorists are still outside. And then it was a very emotional moment that I remember. One of the soldiers just comes to the safe room, and he goes to my kid and gives him a high five, and he asks him, "What's your name?" And he tells him, "Aviv." And the soldier says, "Hello, Aviv. I'm Yaakov. I'm with the IDF, and we came to save you. Now you are safe with us." And he had this Israeli patch on his uniform, and he takes it off and gives it to my son. Then the soldiers, after about 10 minutes of being in our house, they decided to evacuate us to the neighbor's house to concentrate a couple families together from the neighborhood, so it will be easier to protect the families, as I said, because the terrorists were still probably outside and they didn't know how many. And then we arrived at the neighbor's house. It was so nice to see familiar faces after 9 hours of being just by yourselves. And actually the first time Aviv, our kid, cried that day is when he fought for a toy with the neighbor's kid. So I assume we did a pretty good job of putting him in like a bubble of safety, of a mental bubble of safety in this day. And then the cellular reception went back on, and the first thing I see is a video from my mom, sent to me by my mom. And in the footage, you can see the floor over her house all full with drops of blood. And I immediately call her to ask her what's happened, who got hurt. And she picks up the phone, and she tells me that the terrorists were in her house for 3 hours. One of the terrorists was injured. That's why all the blood is. The terrorists opened every drawer, every closet that was in the house. But both of the safe room's door were untouched. There were drops of blood just few inches away from one door of the safe room and from the other door of the safe room. But they didn't even try to open the door. It's like they were blinded to seeing the doors of the safe rooms. And about 30 minutes went by, and my brother, my middle brother, calls me and told me that he was laying in a ditch with his friends for 9 hours, and then the army came to rescue them. He was able to reach his car and drive to Beersheba, which is a city in the south of Israel, and now he's safe there. We've been in the neighbor's house until around midnight. Then the soldiers decided to evacuate us from the kibbutz, as it was still dangerous to be in the kibbutz. And we were a group of about 35 people with kids walking out to the main entrance of the kibbutz, surrounded 360 degrees by soldiers with their guns out. And I remember I was walking just with my flip-flops and my shorts. My kid was walking barefoot because that's all we had from the morning, and that's how we left our house. And while we were going, we seen on the way burned down cars, and it was midnight, but I remember the sky. The sky was lighting up like it was 6 a.m. from the rockets, from the fighter jets, and from the helicopter. That's a scene I could really never forget. Before we reached the gate, in the middle of the road stood a cow just looking at us and mooing. And I didn't understand what she's doing there because the cow house is all the other way on the side of the kibbutz. So that was the first half a smile I could put on my face on this horrible day. And then we reached the gate. It was a big chaos. We were a group of 90 civilians that were supposed to fit in a bus of 50. Eventually we all got up. I was sitting on the floor next to my kid and my wife. Next to me was sitting my fellow student friend. He got like this big rifle from a soldier. I don't know how, I didn't ask. He was just in charge of guarding the bus because the terrorists could wait us on our way out. And while we were driving out, I remember seeing a lot of dead bodies on the side of the road and a lot of burned down cars. I don't know whose bodies there were, maybe terrorists, maybe Israelis. And after about 40 minutes, we've been able to reach an army base. That was the first time we got something to drink and to eat. Our kid got a lot of candy, so we was all happy. And at around 3 a.m., my parents were also evacuated from the kibbutz. And at about 6 a.m., we've been able to reach a temporary place to sleep. And I was able to go to sleep after the most intense 24 hours of my life. And now we'll just see some photos from this day. So, on the left, you will be able to see that's our agriculture car. It says Agriculture Nachal Oz. And on the left, this picture was sent by my friend to me at 10 a.m. while I was in my safe room. And it was like, hey, look, your car is in Gaza full of terrorists. And I was like, yes, I'm in the safe room currently and the terrorists are outside my house, so please don't send me things like this. And on the right, that's the happy ending of this car. It was brought back by our soldiers about 3 months after it was stolen to Gaza by the terrorists. And the car stands in the entrance of our kibbutz of Nachal Oz. In this image, you will be able to see two types of safe rooms doors. On the left, it's a not bulletproof door. That's what most of the people in our kibbutz had in their houses. That's what my parents had in their house. And because the safe rooms were not intentionally designed to protect from ground attacks, they were designed to protect from rockets. That's why the door is like this. And most of the casualties in our kibbutz were shot right through the safe room door while they've been guarding the handle up. The door on the right, it's a bulletproof door. It weighs around 200 pounds, and that's the door we had in our house. It's You cannot shoot through it, but as you can see, the terrorists find a way to get in when they wanted to. They just put explosives on the handle and the door exploded wide open. So as I said, in this day, it was very hard doing normal day things like eating, drinking, going to the toilet, or taking pictures. Can you turn off the lights a little bit more? Yes. And on the picture on the left, you can see my kid was able to balance a toy on top of his head, and he was like, "Hey Dad, take a picture of me." And I could not refuse it. It was 2 p.m. and I really could not refuse taking a picture of him. And about half an hour later, he was able to fall asleep. On the picture on the left, you can see his bed that is open up, and inside you can see his toys. Also, you're able to see here the donut from the morning that he didn't very much like. And this setup of the room that you see in the picture is in my memory so well, because I remember when we played this Lego, or when we played the game, or when we read this book, almost by a minute. And the exact same setup, as you see in the pictures, stayed in our house exactly like this for 2 months, because we left the house just as it was, and only after 2 months, some soldiers that were going into Gaza, they had somewhere to stay and to sleep, and they came to our house and they cleaned it up. But this setup that represents this day the most for me was just there for 2 months. This is our family on normal days. You can see we can be happy as well. My wife, Sarah, my kid, Aviv, and me. This picture is very special. It was taken on the September 9th, less than a month before everything happened. Behind Aviv, you can see the houses of Gaza. This was on our agriculture fields right in front of Gaza. Once a year, we had a special day that all the community will go out to the field together, we will have lunch, and we would all fly kites to symbolize the peace that we wanted to be in the area. And it was a very beautiful view. You would see like 100 kites right in front of Gaza, all at the same time in the air. And this day is very special. So just look how normal our lives were less than a month before everything happened. You remember I told you about the Facebook Live I was watching while being in the safe room? So there were 2 families that were sitting on the floor. In this image, you can see Omri on the left and Tzachi on the right. Tzachi was the one with his hands covered with blood. Later I discovered that his oldest daughter, Maayan, she's 18 years old, she was shot right through the safe room door, and she died. And Tzachi and Omri were both taken captive to Gaza and being held there until now for 177 days with other 132 hostages. They are all still in Gaza. We just want them to come back. And along with Tzachi and Omri, we had another 3 hostages, 2 girls, 8 and 14, and a grandma, 84 years old, and they were released 3 months after the war started. In this footage, we are going to see the footage from my parents' house cameras. It's few videos that I put together, and you will be able to see the terrorists, how they're coming into my parents' house, and then you will be able to hear the shooting sounds that we heard all day long. I hope it's not going to be too loud, because it can sound realistic. And at the end, you will see the IDF soldiers coming in, and my dad asks them to the camera Are you soldiers? Are you soldiers? I mean, you will definitely be able to tell 100% that those are IDF soldiers. But on this day, everything was so unclear and uncertain that he had to ask him this question. And while you're watching this, think of this, that these terrorists and the footage that you're going to see are right outside the door. Because that's what my parents had to go through, sitting in the safe room and knowing that outside the door that there is terrorists. Yes, and that will be all. Thank you all for listening.
Hello everyone. First of all, I want to say to all of you, thank you. Thank you for being here today and hearing Nikita's testimony. Nikita, thank you for doing it today. He's doing it since last Monday, every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. So it's very hard and we really appreciate you doing it. And I want to say again, thank you, and I appreciate you spending your time on Wednesday evening being here and hearing it. It's not a fun evening, we know it, and you still decide to come here. My name is Asaf Doron. Nice to meet you all. I'm part of the Faces of October 7th project. We are a 100% volunteer-based project that were established by former young Jewish professionals that we are working on US campuses. I was working at CU Boulder Hillel, for instance, in Colorado. So when the war began on October 7th, we decided that we cannot remain quiet. We've been experiencing what's going on American campuses, but of course not only in America. And we thought that we had to do something. The best way we decided that we should operate is literally, physically bringing survivors over here, as many as we can, and tell their stories right away. Already on October 8th, we saw people that deny everything happened. So as I said, this is the best way we decided to operate, and we already been to 82 campuses and over 100 communities around the US and Canada, and we hope to grow and to get to as many places as we can. As I said, we 100% solely dependent on donations, so if you guys believe in our mission, please help us to continue. We have limited resources and we do what we can later. And for now, we're going to open the session for questions. So feel free to ask Nikita what's on your minds. We're just asking to refrain from any political questions. Since we are not a political organization, we are not here to talk about politics. We're just here to share stories from that day and to spread the truth of what really happened then. So thank you. So if you guys have questions, just raise your hand. Nikita. Yeah?
Yes. How has your son been since?
Yes. Okay, so my son, as I said, like in the first few days, he was looking very positive and everything. And every time in the first few weeks we mentioned like what's happened, or we went back to talk about this, and he was present. He was really mentioning the soldier that broke our window, and he was mad at him. And I mean, yeah, like he saw it, like physically broken in the living room, so he was a little bit mad at him. And but out of this, he was just saying that there are bad people in Gaza, and like he dislikes them, which is like reasonable for after what we've been. And I want to tell a small story that has to do with Aviv dealing with it. And so about a month later, we are currently evacuated in a kibbutz, in a different kibbutz up north in Israel, and all of our community is there. So we've been walking around the kibbutz, and in one place we saw the posters of the hostages. And on one of the posters, it was Daphna. She's 14 years old, and they were actually dancing together, holding hands on stage the Friday of the October 6th. And he asked me, Dad, why she's in the poster? Why is Daphna on the poster? And I told him, you remember those bad guys that were outside? So they managed to get to our house, and they took her and a younger sister to Gaza. And he accepted it, he like realized this and understood. And after about 2 months, she was returned, and she came back to the kibbutz, and they met, and they hugged it out, and they played together. So it was like a positive and closure for him for this story. And I'm really happy to say that I don't see any signs of post-trauma or different behavior on Aviv. Yes?
How are you?
Well, so I'm here. So it means I'm better. And the first month was terribly hard because all the community were together and not like in separate houses. We lived and are still living in dorms. So it's like rooms in one big building. So you have to constantly see people. And it was very hard because people were in trauma, people were mourning, and people were grieving, and the faces, just something you can really forget, the faces of people for the first month. And just walking around was so tough, and I was going to so many funerals because I also had friends from different kibbutzes because we all grow up in the same school, and so I had to go to 2 or 3 funerals every week in the first month. But after a month of processing and of thinking constantly on what happened, we started thinking forward, started thinking about the future, because you have to. You can't. I was in one point that I understood that it's either me living this October 7th every day of my life and not continue back, or taking what's happened, learning from this, and rebuilding myself mentally better from zero and to wherever I am now. And like after I made this decision, I started really to think about future, because the first month you can never think about coming back to live in the kibbutz, coming back to work anywhere, or I don't know, just like normal day stuff like vacations or going to the mall. And after this change happened for me, and me and my wife decided that we're going to get back to the kibbutz as soon as it will be possible. And also my parents decided the same. I started talking to a lot of press, and a lot of foreign press, and a lot of Israeli press, and I've seen the impact that it's making, and I've seen the comments of the people, and also I've seen the impact that it makes on me, like reliving it, the October 7th, but not as I'm in there, but as a foreign person, like seeing it from outside. It helped me a lot. And also like the first few weeks after what's happened, we've been talking to a lot of psychologists and social workers, and pretty much all what we were doing is just retelling them the story again and again. And the first 3 times it was very hard. I would stop a lot, I would cry a lot during these talks. But when I started getting stronger, I started to talk to new psychologist. And he came to me and he spoke to me and he put some tissues on the table. And he was the only one that was crying the whole talk. And really, so I built myself mentally. And when I felt that I'm mentally stable enough and strong enough to go on this tour, so I decided to sign up. It was about 2 months ago, and it was a process of 2 months. And since then I'm here. I'm not used to talking to people. I just work in front of a computer all day, so it was all hard and like unusual for me. But as we went from one event to another, it becomes easier. And really, the people that talk to me after and saying how important is what I'm doing, so it really encourages me and keep me understand even more how important to do what I'm doing and what the organization does. Thank you. Yes?
Seems from your story like before this, you were someone who really believed in peace and wanted peace, and you didn't have even a gun in your house. I don't know if you were in the military or not. So has this changed your heart about the idea of peace, about having guns and weapons, or do you still feel like you want to see peace and, you know?
Okay, yes, that's a good question. I'll answer that. So I was in the army for 3 years. I didn't find the need to carry a gun because there's an army base right outside of our kibbutz, and there's a lot of soldiers in the surroundings, so I didn't find any need to carry the gun. Today, I carry a gun in Israel, so I have a gun at my house after what's happened. And like really, I've been telling it to a lot of people that knew me before everything happened, that one of my biggest dreams is to go to Gaza, to see a city of Gaza, because you've seen how close it is to us. It's much closer than Tel Aviv and than other cities. I can drive for 5 minutes and be inside of Gaza. I can drive for 10 minutes and be at the beach. I don't have to go to Ashkelon and drive for 30 minutes. And I really wanted to go there just for 1 day, and because they have like history and beautiful place, and they have the beach, and they have the shopping malls, and they have their own culture, and I really wanted to see that 1 day. As people that were living in the 70s in Nahal Oz, they used to go just shop to Gaza back and forth. And after everything that happened, after I've seen kids coming from Gaza on this day just to be in this big terror party, to burn and to destroy all they see, to steal stuff from the kibbutz like TVs and clothes, and just to make as much terror as they could. And where I work is in Be'eri. It's 10 minutes away from our kibbutz. There is a footage of a man, old man on crutches, just crosses the fence and goes there to burn cars and to steal stuff. So after seeing this, I can't tell you who is innocent there anymore. Maybe you can tell me, but really, after this, it's so much harder, and I hope this answered your question well. Yes.
What is your favorite song?
My favorite song?
You say music makes people happy, so what's your favorite song?
Yeah, like I pretty much stopped listening to music after everything that's happened, so...
But before, what's...
Tikva.
It's a tough one. I'll have to go back with it.
So, I'm assuming they are planning on moving back to Be'eri at some, that's their Nahal Oz, and that you will also go back. How do you think it will feel to be there again?
Yes, so I already made myself feel how to be there, because I went just 1 day to work at Be'eri, and even though all the kibbutzes around the Gaza area are a closed military area, and you cannot be there after during the night, you cannot sleep there. But I stayed to sleep in my house because I really wanted to. I slept in the safe room, and it was kind of like a small victory for me. And I was afraid that it was going to trigger some stuff that happened. But as I said, the setup that I remember from this day was not there already. And I felt entirely safe. And even though there was explosions from the border because the war is still going on, I really felt safe. And like, even though right now we sleep in like small, tiny rooms, and we don't have place for pretty much anything. I wash the dishes in the sink of the bathroom, and we don't have a kitchen, so it doesn't matter. But still, like being in your own house, like sitting on your balcony and drinking the tea, and finally having the privacy and the old life you had, just nothing can replace it. Yes.
Are there many of you who want to go back?
So it really depends. There's a lot of families that I heard that won't go back, not a lot, but quite few, which is very reasonable and understandable because people suffer trauma, people had lost their loved ones, but the majority of the community will go back, and the gap that will be created from people not wanting to come back, I'm very sure it will be filled easily with patriotic people from all over Israel that we want to come and live nowhere in Israel, but especially in this place close to Gaza. Yes.
I just wonder, since you've been in the States on this tour for a little while, when you go back, what will you say your impression was, or what you took away from your encounters with people here telling your story?
So we are in a war in Gaza, but we have much larger war against all of the world. And we're fighting it every day, and it's an ongoing war, and it's really tough war that we have. And really coming here and hearing people commenting on what they heard after I speak, and talking to people afterwards, and hearing how much it impacted them, and knowing that I did whatever I could to help Israel on its war against all the world. And I really think that's the most important thing, of seeing that people are taking it from here, that people that, if someone any one of you just go to one of his friends or one familiar person that doesn't know too much about Gaza or Israel, and he doesn't know what he prefers, but then you will tell him the facts or tell him what happened and make this person decide to go with Israel, and that will be the impact that I want to happen.
Thank you.
Yes?
Have you met with a lot of, is it mostly Jewish communities or a lot of different, like here we are, we're I assume we're mostly all Jewish.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's mostly, sorry, I'll take it.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's just,
He's the one in charge.
Now, so we're building relationships. So whoever organization we can communicate with, like Chabad or Hillel or federations, that's usually the easiest for us. We're pretty new and really small. Some of the events, we have non-Jewish people. We know about them just if they say they're not Jewish, so it's really hard.
Most of the time they say, hello, I'm not a Jew, but I came here to listen. And yeah, if there's any of them in the crowd, they will definitely come to me and tell it to me in person after.
Yeah, but we also don't know the people that don't come and say. But yeah, a lot of people love to say and support, which is amazing. But it's really hard for us to know. Definitely the majority are Jewish people, and we do it not because we want, because that's the connections we have with
I just was wondering about like access to people maybe.
Yeah, if there is some connection to anyone here, and people that want to host like this kind of event in a non-Jewish institution, we'd be more than happy. We want to spread the word as much as we can and make an impact, like Nikita said, to whoever wants to listen. And sometimes this is hard; not everyone wants to listen.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Over there? Yes. Hello.
Your parents have been through many wars, right, over the years in Israel. what do they say about this one? Do they feel like it's different? Are they more optimistic a little bit? Just curious about how they think this one does compared to the previous.
Well, most of the wars, me and my parents were in the same amount of wars in Israel as we immigrated from Russia together in 2001. And in all of the wars, our only threat was the rockets. All of them. The only threat we had was rockets. And rockets is not a small threat. Don't be confused about this, but still. Like, it's so different. We had never anything even close to this before. And I mean, if I thought I'm going to be dead, my parents knew it 100% because the terrorists were right outside the door for hours and hours. And I assumed it's changed their life perspectives a little bit. They went to a month to Thailand for a month, so they took a vacation and they're starting to rethink about building their lives. And it changes you. When you feel death, it really changes a lot of life perspectives. And
Do you feel like your life is more worth living or valuable now that you've gone through things? Is it kind of like
that's a good question.
more alive or?
If it's more valuable. No, but I am thinking like as I'm seeing a material in life less important than what it was before. Like all material value for us pretty much dropped from the equation because we've seen like in a matter of hours your life can be at stake and nothing will really help you. So, but yeah.
Nikita.
What does it mean that you said that they were in your parents' house and the doors were like invisible? If they were there for a few hours and didn't try the safe rooms, they obviously knew where it is.
Yes. So there's no way you will not be able to see the safe rooms doors, both of them, and it's like a miracle from God. I really don't have any other explanations how they would not even try to open it. Leave the fact that they can just shoot through the door and that's it, you don't have to do anything. But just come and try to open this like this. Because every drawer that there is in the house and every closet and every other door was opened. Just every single one of them. And the drops of blood that they were so close to the door, there is no other explanation. As they didn't see the door. It doesn't make any sense. And there were a lot of miracles on this terrible day. And like the neighbor that lives behind me had terrorists inside of the house. They were battling for the door handle. And then the terrorists just left. Can be explained. Also, the two families that were sitting in their kitchen being held captive by the terrorists. We've seen in other kibbutzes, there's either kidnapped everyone, either killed everyone. But in this case, they just took the two dads and let all the other go. Can it be explained? Not really. But along with all the terrible things that happened during this day, a lot of miracles occurred. And I really want to tell about one big miracle we had in our kibbutz. So as I said, our kibbutz had 14 people that were murdered and 5 that had been kidnapped to Gaza, 3 has been released. And if you compare this number to Be'eri, which is adjacent to us, to Kfar Aza or to near Oz, these numbers are very, very small in percentages. And if you ask why is that, is in our kibbutz was a group of 11 soldiers, special police unit, that were supposed to oppose the riots on the fence that the Palestinians doing every Saturday. So we're there just by occasion. They were sleeping in our kibbutz, 11 hero soldiers, to be there in the morning of Saturday to be on the fence, to oppose the riots they have on the fence. And this 11 heroes, they're kids, they're like 22, 21, and they fought and they killed over 100 terrorists just by themselves. their commander got murdered, and 6 of them were injured, but all the injured are now well. We were able to meet with them a month and a half after everything happened. You just look them in the eyes. They're kids. They could never be ready for such an event. They maybe none of them ever shot a person. Who knows? And to handle these many terrorists, this large amount of terrorists, and it's just incredible. So the thing is, they fought on one side of the kibbutz, but they could not cover all the kibbutz. So 90, pretty much all the casualties were on the other side of the kibbutz. And they managed to fight successfully more than 100 terrorists and burglars and to stop them. Because we don't have any destroyed houses, as you can see in Be'eri. In Be'eri, they had tanks inside the kibbutz, shootings and destroying houses with terrorists. In Nir Oz, the terrorists went to cars, opened up the trunk, took the wheel from the trunk, the reserve wheel, and they threw it in the houses. And they tried to smoke the people out from their safes by burning down their house. Not even one house was lighted up in our kibbutz. And our kibbutz is very close to the fence, as you've seen. Other than a miracle, there's no other explanation.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Nikita.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call Rabbi Aaron to lead, to close off the event with the singing of Achenu.
Should I move it?
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. We needed to connect with what happened in a tangible way since it's been 179 days since October 7th, and our heart is still where it's been since then, which is broken and attuned to our people and strengthening. When we're bearing witness to the pure evil of what happened that day, we feel such tremendous pain because the Jewish people are one family. As the Talmud teaches, Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh Bazeh, all of Israel is responsible for each other. We're like one body. And when one part of the body is hurt, we all feel it. This week we read about Aaron HaKohen, whose sons died on the 8th day of the Mishkan dedication ceremony. And he had to put his mourning on hold because he had to continue to perform the rituals of the temple. And it made me think about this great tragedy that happened on the 8th day. It was Shmini Atzeret. And we too were forced to put our mourning on hold as we circled around the Torah in disbelief and forced ourselves to perform the rituals, hoping it would somehow give us strength in the chaos of the storm. And then having to face so many people around the world who were blaming and condemning Israel before we even had a chance to mourn. After the tragic death of Nadav and Avihu, Moses says to his brother Aaron that it was a Kiddush Hashem, that they did not die in vain or for shame, that their deaths were a sanctification of God's name. But of course, what was Aaron's response to this? He was silent. His silence was not a lack of response, but the text emphasizes that silence was Aaron's response. And sometimes that's the only response. So just want to hold with you a moment of silence. So in just a few weeks across the world, we'll sit down around the Seder table. Jews will sit around the Seder table and declare, Hashata Avdei, Lishana Haba B'nei Chorin. This year we are slaves, next year may we be free. This year, Halev Shalanu, Shavui Ba'aza, our hearts are held captive in Gaza. With this traditional prayer for hostages, which is there at your seat, Achenu, may we send some light and some love to our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel that they know we have not forgotten about them, and that our people will not give up until they return safely back to the loving arms of their families. So the words of this prayer: as for our brothers and sisters, the whole house of Israel, who are given over to trouble or captivity, whether they abide on the sea or on the dry land, may the all-present have mercy upon them and bring them forth from trouble to enlargement, from darkness to light, and from subjection to redemption, now speedily and at a near time. And I'll ask David, can you help me sing this?
And I would actually also ask people, if you don't mind, to stand up as we sing this. Acheinu kol beit Yisrael, Acheinu kol beit Yisrael, hanetunim b'tzara ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם ויוציאי מצרה לרווחה ומאפלה לאורה ושיבוא לגאולה השתה בגלה ובזמן קריב.
Thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. There's some more refreshments in the back, and have a safe ride home. I'd like to thank Nikisha and Asaf for coming.